I'm here in North Carolina for one reason, because I intend to win this state in November. Are you going to see that happen?
12 more Democrats are calling for President Biden to drop out of the presidential race, among them Illinois Congressman Sean Casten and Chuy Garcia. The Biden campaign has reiterated the president is staying put.
President Biden's aides huddling behind the scenes amid growing calls for Biden to step aside in the presidential race. Biden, recovering from COVID, is promising to get back on the campaign trail next week.
Anyone can see why they think he's God's anointed one. Anyone can effortlessly understand why Republicans cheered when Donald Trump repeatedly claimed the divine as his #1 supporter, declaring with certainty that he had God on his side. To the faithful gathered at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee on Thursday night, none of that would have sounded like an exaggeration, and not only because their nominee for the U.S. presidency had survived an assassin's bullet, it's also because Trump has been on a run of extraordinary good fortune, one that might be just about to end, the fact that Biden is seriously considering stepping down. Of course, it was that brush with death at a rally in Pennsylvania 2 weekends ago that the former and would-be future president had in mind when he spoke of a providential moment. The shooting and Trump's ability to shrug off injury, raising his fist in bloodied defiance, has prompted his most fervent believers to cast him as a living martyr to their cause. The Republican Party had already transformed itself into a cult of personality. But to see delegates wearing bandages on their right ears as a mark of love for and identification with their leader is to realize that that cult has become messianic, but seemingly not for so long. Still, even the most godless Republicans may have found themselves wondering if Trump does indeed have a friend upstairs. For 3 straight weeks, everything has gone his way.
About his debt, we'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system.
Trump's hot streak began with the TV debate against Joe Biden at the end of June, a debate that, it's worth remembering, would typically have taken place in the autumn had the Biden team not insisted it must happen sooner. That was a 90-minute disaster for the president who, when he wasn't struggling to complete sentences, stared vacantly into space, looking at every one of his 81 years. That triggered panic among Democrats. 3 long weeks of internal agonizing as elders and bigwigs sought to navigate between the pride and stubbornness of a president who they believe deserves respect for a consequential term in office, and a party ever more convinced that he will not only lose the White House, but will take Democratic candidates for the House and Senate down with him. That process may reach its climax this coming week, but not before it has handed Trump a delicious contrast. Democrats divided and distracted, Republicans unified and focused. Meanwhile, the courts have been smiling on Trump, whether it's 6 Supreme Court judges, 3 of whom were appointed by him, granting presidents near-total immunity for their official acts, or a Trump-appointed judge throwing out what most agreed was the strongest of all the legal cases against him relating to his alleged retention of classified documents. That's allowed him to sit back and enjoy the show. He's watched, as to take one example, Biden gave a decent performance at a post-NATO summit press conference, giving detailed answers on foreign policy, while all anyone remembers is that he introduced Volodymyr Zelensky as President Putin and referred to Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump. Democrats believe that all along, Biden's bid has been the golden card on Trump's side, and Trump knows it. If the reports of Biden stepping down are anything to go by, the former president will be shaken to the bones. But it's the assassination attempt and the TV debate that are the bookend events of these remarkable few weeks, reinforcing what was already Trump's chosen frame for the campaign: strong v. weak. As one senior Democrat put it to me, the Republicans have a guy who bullets bounce off of. We have a guy who can't handle a flight of stairs. The polls are bleak for Democrats, with Trump leading Biden not only in all the key swing states, but even in once solidly Democratic terrain, with Virginia and even incredibly New York now deemed battleground states. No wonder Republicans were talking this past week about a November landslide. Then, just in case any part of the narrative was insufficiently vivid, while Trump was being hailed as a messiah in Milwaukee, Biden contracted COVID. Now, he is isolated in every possible sense. except maybe it's possible to be too lucky. Trump is so far ahead, his numbers so strong, that Democrats have stepped up their post-debate push to get Biden to withdraw from the race. Privately at first, and then when Biden refused to budge, publicly via well-placed leaks, congressional leaders, big league donors, and arguably the party's sharpest political brain, the former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, have spelled it out for the president, telling him he cannot win. "It's over," one party veteran said. "He'll be gone by Monday." If that's right, then Trump's lucky streak will surely be at an end. His entire campaign has been predicated on Biden being his opponent. Facing someone else means three fundamentals of the race would be altered. First, media attention will shift away from him to the shiny object of a new Democratic nominee. Second, he, not his opponent, will be the oldest person in the race. And third, Trump should no longer have the change message, so potent in this age of anti-incumbency, all to himself. That last element depends on whom Democrats choose and how they do it. If Biden stands aside and there is a quick coronation of his deputy, Harris, then Trump will cast her as the status quo. There will be a cacophony of racist and misogynist dog whistles, along with a related effort to present her as lacking a Democratic mandate and dangerously left-wing. But there is another way to do it. Even some of Harris's backers favor a mini-primary, which could amount to a fortnight or so of TV debates before the 4,000 or so Democratic delegates cast their votes. Not enough, to be sure, but that would bestow some Democratic legitimacy on the eventual winner and offer at least a glimpse of who flourishes and who wilts under national scrutiny. The ballot itself should happen before the party convention in Chicago on the 19th of August, so that gathering can be a showcase rather than a floor fight. So, as Democrats head into a fateful week, they should know they have little to fear from what may lie ahead. A contest could demonstrate the party's energy and vigor, its deep bench of new talent, drawing the contrast with the creepy cult it opposes. Given the number of Americans who have been saying for a year or more that they want a choice other than Trump versus Biden, there is every chance the election could be upended, with the polls looking radically different almost straight away. And Trump showed again on Thursday night how eminently beatable he is. His speechwriters wanted him to adopt a kinder, gentler tone, a man chastened by his brush with death bent on healing and national unity. He managed it for a while, but soon he was veering away from the teleprompter with rambling diversions into all the old, dark, greatest hits. Crazy Pelosi, migrants as an invasion of killers and criminals, the election that was stolen from him. As for the struggling president, the beleaguered Joe Biden entered potentially the most decisive weekend of his 50-year political career this past Friday as the growing list of Democratic members of Congress calling on him to step aside surpassed 30, with the latest being the Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown. Biden is recovering from COVID-19 in self-isolation at his home in Delaware and reportedly feeling angry and betrayed by allies, and speculation mounted that he might be preparing to announce his withdrawal from the race. Advisors were reported to be discussing the details, timing, and setting of a possible withdrawal announcement, and a mood of resignation before Biden's departure was said to be rampant among his campaign staff. With 6 in 10 Democratic voters telling an AP NORC Center for Public Affairs research poll released on Friday that Kamala Harris would make a good president, allies of the vice president were making discreet preparations for her to assume the top of the presidential ticket, courting donors and crafting a new message to be used in the event she becomes the candidate. A rare glimmer of light for Biden came in a letter on Thursday signed by more than 1,400 black female supporters who argued that he should remain the candidate and that any attempt to change the ticket would circumvent the will of millions of voters who participated in a democratic process in the primaries. Another public statement of support on Thursday came from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the New York congresswoman who, during an Instagram live stream on Thursday, urged Democrats to reconsider their efforts to push Biden out.
The ultimate decision will be with the president. There is enormous pressure on him. And let me be very clear as to why I support the president.
On Friday, Bernie Sanders also urged support for Biden. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus's campaign arm also announced on Friday that it was endorsing Biden which is no surprise given the group's opposition to Trump, but noteworthy at a moment when the president is fighting for his political life. Another Trump presidency would be disastrous to the Latino community across the country, the group's chairwoman, Linda Sanchez, said. However, with more than 30 Democrats in Congress, including the leading California representative Adam Schiff, having now called on Biden to step down, the president was said to be angry at senior figures in the party for encouraging the discontent. Chief among them is Nancy Pelosi, the former House Speaker who has tried to persuade Biden of his declining poll numbers, as well as Barack Obama and Bill and Hillary Clinton, who Biden reportedly feels have undermined him through their conspicuous silence. Late Friday evening, Senator Brown released a statement. At this critical time, our full attention must return to these important issues. I think the president should end his campaign. After weeks of defiantly stating that he will remain the Democratic nominee, despite concerns about his age and mental acuity in the wake of last month's disastrous debate against Donald Trump, some media outlets were reporting that Biden was reconsidering his position. Reality is setting in, a source close to Biden told the New York Times, adding that it would not be surprising if Biden announced his withdrawal soon to allow Harris to take the nomination. I don't see how Biden can outmaneuver the sustained attacks, Politico quoted a Democratic figure close to the White House as saying, "It feels like the ending is near." Biden's resolve had reportedly been shaken by a combination of the intensive machinations of Pelosi, fresh poll data from swing states showing his path to an electoral college victory narrowing, and a boycott by key donors, the latest of whom reportedly was the Silicon Valley billionaire Michael Moritz. Pelosi, long one of his most important allies, is said to have used her knowledge of polling data and the political map to persuade him that his position is weak. Biden has repeatedly insisted that he has polling evidence showing he could win, relying on data from his aide, Mike Donilon. But when he made the argument to Pelosi in a recent phone call, the New York Times reported that she told him to put Donilon on the phone so she could counter it with her own polling and imply that the president was not being kept informed. Public pressure intensified further on Thursday when the Senate Democrats John Tester of Montana and Martin Heinrich of New Mexico publicly urged Biden to step aside. Many more than the 30-plus congressional Democrats who have publicly called for his withdrawal have done so in private. 4 House members, Jared Huffman of California, Mark Veazey of Texas, Chai Garcia of Illinois, and Mark Pocan of Wisconsin, issued a plea jointly Friday. They wrote to Biden, "Mr. President, you have always put our country and our values first. We call on you to do it once again so that we can come together and save the country we love." 3 further separate calls were made by Zoe Lofgren of California, a close Pelosi ally, Sean Casten of Illinois, and Greg Landsman of Ohio, whose seat is one of the Republicans' top targets in November's election. Allies of Pelosi depicted her as exercising sensitivity towards Biden by recognizing his achievements as president, long record of political service, and the fact that he has COVID, while subtly using gentle persuasion. "She's like a magician," one source revealed. "She's extraordinarily intentional. She's trying hard to keep the balance and helping him reach a decision by gently pulling, never pushing." That cut little ice with Biden's allies, one of whom compared his fate to Julius Caesar. "People who have known this man for 30, 40 years are stabbing this man in the front and the back," a senior campaign and administration aide told Politico. "They are Julius Caesaring this man." Biden himself was reported to share such sentiments, telling aides that he feels hurt and betrayed at how the party's leading figures, who he has previously derided as elites, have tried to push him out. One Biden ally told NBC News that the party leaders now trying to force him from the ticket were to blame for Trump's victory in the 2016 election. Can we all just remember for a minute that these same people who are trying to push Joe Biden out are the same people who literally gave us all Donald Trump? In 2015, Obama, Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the Democratic Senate Majority Leader, pushed Biden aside in favor of Hillary. They were wrong then, and they are wrong now, the source said. Perhaps we should learn a few lessons from 2016. One of them is that polls are BS. And 2, maybe, just maybe, Joe Biden is more in touch with actual Americans than Obama, Pelosi, Schumer? Biden's campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon, continued to stress that Biden had work to do, but said the campaign did not have its head in the sand. Emphasizing that the president's campaign trail appearances have been reassuring to the campaign, she said, "The more and more people that see Joe Biden out there post-debate, they are reassured." However, such defiance seemed increasingly rare inside the Biden campaign, with CNN reporting that some staff had undergone a quiet quit process. "I don't think you can find a person who is off the record saying he should stay in," one said. "There's a growing sense that it's game over. The stakes are too high for the U.S. and the world to let Democrats cede the 2024 contest to Trump, which is what a continued Biden candidacy would do." The hope is that Biden himself reaches that conclusion in the next day or two and performs what will be his last great act of public service. Because whatever the Republican faithful may say, this decision is not in the hands of the Almighty. It is in the hands of human beings who, whatever their fears and frailties, need to act and act now. And that's it from us today. Until next time, thank you for watching.